Hey there, runners and rovers! Welcome on board the USS Lexington, a World War II aircraft carrier and museum ship anchored here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Today we're going to be exploring this amazing living history museum here in Corpus Christi. So follow us as we show you some tight companionways, aircraft, and the general history behind this amazing historical site. So let's start exploring. So visiting the USS Lexington is one of the cool things to do here in Corpus Christi, especially if you are a history and especially naval history buff. It is a really cool site to just explore. There's so many different nooks and crannies to the ship, and totally worth a visit, especially with your kids, who I'm sure would be fascinated not only by the many planes and cannons on the ship, but the history and just the scope and dimensions of what it takes to operate a ship of this size. It is an amazing place to come and learn about history and just kind of read up on the stories that took place on the ship. It is an enormous site, so expect to spend something around an hour and a half to 2.5 hours here. It costs $19 to visit this attraction, and less if you're younger than 17 and progressively down, or if you're active military or a senior citizen. We're here right after the holidays. They decorated the planes. So I am immediately hit with two different sensations. First, once you're actually inside the aircraft carrier, is the sense of space. I mean, I'm using a wide angle lens on the camera, and you can really get a sense of like how spacious it is when you're inside here, and how they would have stored the planes, and just how big some of these planes are. Another one of the things that I'm struck with is once you leave this area, how tight everything gets as soon as you go into like the restrooms or like the different companionways and rooms that line like the side and the actual interior of the ship. Right behind me are the steam accumulators for the entire ship. It is just amazing how intricate these old warships are. I mean, I'm sure that the modern ones are really intricate too, but you just get a sense of this being a maze. It just blows the mind just how much was actually went into operating these ships. And as you can see, like as soon as you step out of that inner chamber, it turns very tight very fast. So we're going up this ladder towards the flight deck. I mean, if you can see, this is very much tight quarters. The stairs are very steep. It's gonna be a little hard if you're not, reasonably fit to move around the ship. You have all these different maps showing the different battles that the Lexington participated in. It participated in battles such as the Battle of Leyte Gulf, in the Battle of the Philippine Sea, so all of these very important major battles in the Pacific theater of World War II. You can just like get a sense of like what life was like on board the ship, and just kind of all the story that played out in here. Here it says there's this plaque to the captain, Admiral Felix B. Stan, who was it says here he's the founding captain of the USS Lexington. It says that on the fatal night of December 4th, 1943, after being disabled by a Japanese torpedo bomber, the skipper went to the ship's speaker system and said, "This is the captain speaking. We have taken a torpedo hit in our stern and the rudder seems badly damaged. Each man must do his job calmly and efficiently. Don't worry, that's my job. I got you here, I'll get you out." So you really get a sense of like the real stories and the real things that were lived in this ship, and just like the risks that these people took like during the war. It's kind of strange to live this as a Mexican because we have nothing similar to this. I mean, we have practically no navy, and definitely no airplanes, no aircraft. I grew up hearing stories about World War II, you know, reading about it, watching documentaries. I've always been a huge history buff, and especially a huge naval history buff. Just so you get a sense of like the companionways or that were here in the ship. So like it's very different to actually experience this from inside the place where these battles actually happened. I mean, naval history in particular is a little strange. These battles happened out in the ocean, so it's one place, but also they happen in here, in this movable place, right? So this is actually like, if you want to think about it that way, like a battle site too. The ship itself is a part of that battlefield. Kind of looks like a fast food restaurant kitchen, doesn't it? So these are the quarters for the captain and the admiral here on the ship, so you can get a sense that many of the important and pivotal decisions were taken in these spaces.
However, I hope you can join us on a future visit. In the meantime, please enjoy the rest of your tour on board USS Lexington.
And you do have a sense that it's almost like, not a haunted ship, but you can feel that things happened in all of these spaces. I can just kind of feel it. You have this sense, almost like when you go into like a room that's inhabited by somebody and you just kind of feel that energy. It's kind of the same in here. So fun naval tidbit of information for you. When there's a toilet, it's actually called the head on board a ship. For all of you non-sailors out there. I am seeing so many people having trouble navigating the ship, like the tight spaces and the companionways. But being a short Mexican man, I feel totally at home. It's one of the few advantages of being short, let me assure you. I think one of the reasons that this is such a cool museum is not only that, like I was saying before, you are actually in one of these battle sites, because the ship itself, I would say, is the battle site, because it participated in and moved around after these battles, right? But also because you have all these really cool exhibits with pictures and stories from the actual crew, things that were lived. So you have like pieces of shrapnel that were from some of these battles, you know, I mean, to get a sense of like how brutal like they would have been. Or you have pictures of like the ceremonies of like crossing the line for some of these sailors who had Because we have to remember that most of the people who served on the ship were civilians who got drafted, put on the ship, and had never been on a ship before or had served in the Navy before. The stories of hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people are tied to this ship, and the museum does a really cool job of actually telling some of these tiny stories, tiny moments and snippets of history, but not only history, but the personal stories of some of these people who served on the ship, so that you can really get a sense of what it was like to be here, you know, for months, years at a time. You know, I often wonder if some of these ships aren't just haunted. I might just ask other staff members, see if they ever experience anything creepy or strange in this on board the ship. Just imagine the moments of like panic and terror and courage and all these different things that were lived here. Like, I mean, these places are receptacles of like strong emotions that were lived during these like crucial, pivotal moments. So you have like all these different photographs that are associated with real people who actually served on this ship, which is like a cool, it's a very cool testimony to like the people who actually served on the ship and spent, you know, considerable parts of their lives here, lived considerable moments of their lives on board this vessel.
Unforgettable thought, and then suddenly we put two and two together and realized that we had been attacked, that was clear, but that at the same time we had brought the aircraft down.
Join up, come on, join up. Jacobson, rendezvous, join up, do you hear? What's that zero up there? I've made 2 feints at him and he won't budge. He's an old timer.
What's that zero doing up there, Hank?
He ain't saying, just hanging up there.
So after exploring the galleries, the ready rooms, and the captain's quarters, we're going to go up into the forecastle to see some of the more operational sides of this ship. I just love being here. It's so evocative. So these are the anchor chains that would have held the massive anchors required to keep this floating city just stationary in a moving sea. This is the forecastle, so called because early sailing ships used to have these towers, which they would call the forecastle or the forward castles, which would jut up. So these are the traditional quarters for the crew. So as you can see, you have all these different berths here. This is where many of the crew would have lived. So this is I think the junior officers' quarters. So the crew would have lived here in this section of the ship, which is the forward section, but also it served another important function. Right at the front of the ship, you have the secondary con, or the secondary conning tower, which means that in the case that the bridge was disabled because of like an air attack or a bomb or something, the ship wouldn't be just dead in the water. You could navigate it from the front part of the ship. As you can tell, it's just a very, very tight space. So right behind me you have the list for all the different actions that the USS Lexington was in. And you have all these battles, everything from Tarawa, Wei, Mile, Guam, Luzon, raids on Tokyo, just so many different battles. So this was a very, very important ship that took place in history, and I would even argue, made history. It took an active part in shaping that history. So now we're on our way to the flight deck to see what this ship is all about, which is the planes. It is an aircraft carrier after all. I can only imagine how this ship would have smelled with hundreds and hundreds of people on board, you know, in times when it's underway, we're fighting a battle in like the sweltering tropics of the Pacific Ocean. Let's go into the gun, see how it was for the gunners. So these are 38 caliber shells. You can just imagine the din of them going off during a naval battle. When you're looking at the aircraft carrier from outside, all you see is this like cohesive mass just floating on the water. And it's when you actually come in here when you realize just how mechanical everything used to be, like how much of it just worked like clockwork. And you just have to consider too that people were a part of that clockwork. So people would have formed kind of like the lifeblood of this ship. If it has all these different organs, the guns, the planes, the different like weapon systems, and all these different interior systems, people were what actually made it work. And so you can just tell how you would have just been a part of this machinery, this cog, and everybody had a role on the ship, something to do, something that benefited everybody else on the ship. Everyone from the captain to, I don't know who the lowest person on the rung would have been, but it's just fascinating to see, you know. It just kind of really speaks about kind of the teamwork behind what World War II would have involved. and you also get some unparalleled views of the ocean and the laguna surrounding Corpus Christi in particular. So there are all kinds of aircraft up here on the flight deck. So you have Skyhawks, you have Corsairs, you have different helicopters. I don't really know like the names of all of them. During World War II, this ship, I believe, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, would have carried countless dive bombers, and so much of these different aircraft come from a later period, so kind of like around the Vietnam War or even later. So to just kind of understand the aircraft that this carrier would have carried on its raids throughout the Pacific. So it's important to understand that during naval battles in World War II, these were actually naval and air battles. During many of these battles, ships wouldn't even see each other because you would just launch all these different aircraft and just strike at these other naval groups operating within the same theater. So during battles such as the Battle of the Coral Sea, during which the US checked the Japanese invasion of Australia and thereby saving Australia and a big part of the Pacific theater during the war, you actually... Oh, we have an airplane right above us, actually. So you would have had entire naval fleets that never saw each other during the entire battle. So that's where the importance of aircraft carriers come in, and the lasting legacy of the USS Lexington. So the Lexington is actually the 5th US Navy ship called the Lexington. It's named after the Battle of Lexington during the Revolutionary War. So she's nicknamed the Lady Lex or the Blue Ghost. It was actually gonna be called something else, but there was another ship called the Lexington which sank during the Battle of the Coral Sea. So this carrier was named after that battleship that sank during that battle. So these are the anti-aircraft guns that would have operated during some of these pivotal World War II battles. So you can just imagine the difficulty of trying to hit a moving target in the air, and just kind of the skill and practice and the luck that it took to just take down a plane right out of the sky. It's just fascinating to try to get a sense of what these battles would have actually been like, or just kind of what it would have felt like to have come under an air attack while on the ship, or a torpedo strike, which this aircraft carrier actually underwent. The Lexington was struck by a torpedo, and fortunately it didn't sink. So we have the museum today right here in Corpus Christi and not at the bottom of the ocean. So you can just kind of get a sense of like what it would have been like to be a sailor fighting Japan during World War II. So this is the landing signals officer platform, and this is where the so-called LSOs would have tried to get planes to safely land here on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier. The USS Lexington was commissioned in 1943, and it had a career spanning all the way up to 1991, and it had just under 500,000 safe landings here on the flight deck. So quite a distinguished naval career. So we're going back in to explore the bridge. This is where all the action happened, all the major decisions were made. So pretty historical part of the ship. As again, we're passing through these tight spaces, and we're making our way up into the conning tower here on the USS Lexington. To just really get a bird's eye view of the command station. So we're on the bridge here on the USS Lexington. This is where many of the ship's decisions would have been made, and this is from where the captain would have kept tight control over the ship's movements and the operations of the ship. So this would have been the maneuvering controls that would have sent signals down to the engine room, and just really like the brain or the nerve center for operation of the ship. So you can just imagine like the tension and the emotions that would have run here during naval engagements or air engagements during World War II or later conflicts. I mean, really like a one-of-a-kind place on a ship like this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video of the USS Lexington. It's totally worth a visit if you're traveling here in southern Texas, in Corpus Christi. Remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, drop a comment. If you have somebody who served on the ship, you know, tell us some of their stories in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. It really keeps us growing, this amazing community of ramblers and rovers just like you. Safe travels, and until our next adventures, adios.